Welcome back to the show. Tessa, I want to ask you, how is sunny Florida? But I know I've figured out the answer to that. It's hot and it's humid and it's sunny. Noted. Got it. Okay, we're good.
We got that cleared
Yeah.
up. Okay, great.
Yeah.
How you doing, Reuben?
I can't complain. Can't complain. It got cool here in Minnesota. Like, woke up and it was 45 degrees this morning. I had all the bedroom windows open and I was just like, I'm cold.
You know what? I am a little bit jealous, I have to say. Fall is one of my favorite seasons, and I miss that crisp, clear feeling of a cool fall morning.
Yeah.
I miss it so bad.
Yeah, you don't get that anymore. All right. And I gotta ask our guest if he gets any of those. We got a guest on today. We got Paul Barraza. He's a home inspector out of Northern California. Meant to have him on when we were doing our series on regional inspection differences, but we just could not coordinate our schedules. And we already had, kind of California cover, but Northern California, it's different from Southern California. So we've got Paul on. He's been at this a long time. Paul, how you doing today?
Great. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate you including me in the chat.
Oh, absolutely. So Paul, how cold does it get where you live? And where exactly are you?
Berkeley, California, so San Francisco Bay Area.
Okay.
It sometimes gets in the 30s,
Okay.
And
all right. You can see almost freezing temperatures.
Yeah. I remember as a kid having snow like once every 5 years or something. But yeah, if it freezes, it's unusual and people don't know what to do.
Yeah, I bet. All right. So Paul, tell me a little bit about your inspection career. What got you to where you are today? How did you get into home inspections? How long have you been doing it? What does your company look like? All that jazz.
Yeah, well, I started around 2007. I had a friend who was doing it, and this is like kind of at the tail end of a big boom period here. He's like, "Oh yeah, you should do it. It's great. It's fun. Blah blah." And so I was like, "Oh, maybe I'll check out this ITA course." So they had back in the day with ITA training, and actually Douglas Hansen was my instructor for 2 weeks, which at the time I was like, "Oh, it's some." Random person's my instructor, but it turns out I was pretty lucky.
Yeah.
To have that.
Douglas Hansen. Yeah. Cool.
Another one of the instructors was a well-established inspector in the area. So after the school, they say, "Oh, everything you need to know in 2 weeks." And you take the class, you realize, "Oh yeah,
right.
It's not a 2-week thing to learn everything." So then I took the class, and I met the instructor after. They allow you to audit the inspections that they would do in the class. And so I basically was like, "Hey, you're looking to bring someone on?" And he was someone who's been doing it for 30 years. I basically apprenticed with him and kind of went full time in 2010, which is kind of the tail end of the housing recession. So it's kind of a good time, I think, to cut your teeth. 2008, 9, 10 was kind of slow and difficult. And then, just got into it and joined the local ASHI chapter and, met a lot of great guys who are willing to share all their knowledge and, all their mistakes, and we could all, be better inspectors together.
Yes. Wow. Awesome. And I know at the time you spent a lot of time on the ASHI forum. That's where you and I actually met, was just chatting online with each other.
Yep.
And this is back when ASHI used to have a forum.
Right. Supposedly it's coming back.
I heard a rumor it's coming back. Yeah. Don't get me started. No, you know what? I got myself started. This is my fault, but I've been frustrated with a lot of things ASHI lately. How does a forum just disappear? Part of the attraction to having a forum is the deep knowledge. You've got posts and you chat about this stuff, and it's like, oh, I ask a question here, and then 3 years down the road, one of my inspectors asked me the same question, and I can go, oh, yeah, we talked about it. I had Douglas Hansen weigh in on this one, and he gave me a fantastic answer. Let me look it up, and I'll share it with him. When you take a forum and you just wipe it out, all of this institutional knowledge, I don't have words. It's very frustrating. And that's what happened.
They can maybe have the ability to bring that part back, and
I'm not holding my breath. That'd be really cool if it did, but that's where you and I met. We'd spent a lot of time on there, and I remember, you may not remember this, but I do. I was on this committee back when ASHI would have their annual conferences. Well, they're doing them again now. But we would have a ton of speakers submit applications to teach at these conferences. You know, they'd say, hey, do you want to speak here? Submit your application. It'd be this huge packet. They'd send all the slides, their qualifications and all that. And I was on a committee. It was called the Education Committee. And we would have a team of like 8 of us get together in person, and we would pour over all these applications, and we'd spend like a full day on it, and we'd choose who was going to be presenting at Inspection World. I think it'd end up being about 45 different classes at every conference, and you'd have different educational tracks like beginner, advanced, business building, that kind of stuff. And they were fantastic sessions, and it's like we put a lot into figuring out who the speakers were going to be for these conferences. What are they doing today? I don't know. I think you got one person who has never been a home inspector sitting in a room going, this looks good, that looks good. And they don't pay squat. I don't teach anymore for them, because the last time they asked me to teach, it was, what's the compensation? Well, we'll give you free admittance to the conference. Well, how do I get there? How do I pay for lodging? All that. Oh, that's on you. And it's like, you want me to pay for everything? Like, okay. All right. I'm going down the wrong path. I'm just complaining here, but things have changed. But the one thing, all right, I'll tie it back to you, Paul.
Yeah.
I had never presented at any conference. After I went to the very first conference, I thought I would love to present. I would love to be one of the speakers here. I think I'd be good at this, and I'm going to present someday. And then I think the next year, you had sent an email to the education coordinator saying, hey, for the business section, if you ever get Reuben Saltzman to come in and teach about running a multi-inspector company, I will be at the conference, or something to that effect. And I don't remember exactly what you said, but it was, I remember how it made me feel. That's the old thing. People don't remember what you said. They remember how you made them feel. And I was like, wow, what a nice guy. And I ended up speaking that year. It was the first year I spoke, and it was just based on one email you sent. And I spoke there every year since, and I've taught dozens and dozens upon classes, and it's all because you sent one nice little email. So
all because of me. No.
All because of you, Paul. All because of you. I'll always remember that whenever I see your name. So wanted to thank you for that.
Michelle. Yeah, no, you're welcome. I met Michelle at, there's a California conference. I don't know if it was a realtor conference or something, and she was there representing ASHI. And so I was there at the table. We were just chatting it up. And so it wasn't just some random person emailing. It did help that I met her and she knew who I was. And so I knew I could put a good word in, and I'm glad it worked.
Yeah. I sure appreciate it. All right. So that was a total sidetrack, but we're here to talk about home inspections and practices and what we do. Paul, just to start off, what does your business look like? Are you a solo inspector? Do you have people working underneath you? Where are you at these days?
So it's me and 2 other inspectors, and we have someone answering the phone. So we're relatively small, but we do have 3 inspectors. I think there's a few big firms in the area, but most of the companies are pretty small, like one inspector firms. So we're kind of in the middle ground. I probably wanted you to do that presentation because I was curious about hiring people. I'm sure it was probably self-serving in that regard.
Hey,
but so relatively small. We work in the mainly in the East Bay, so that's Oakland, Berkeley kind of side of things. Just San Francisco is across the bay. You have to cross a body of water to get there, so we don't go there very often, even though it's only 10 miles away. But there's a lot of housing in our area, so it's very dense. We basically work in the East Bay. We do home inspections, commercial inspections, home energy score, because that's required by a few of the cities, as well as consulting work.
Okay. All right. Excellent.
Is a home energy score, is that a we have programs like that in the Twin Cities. It's through the utility companies, and they come in and they send someone through the house with like an infrared camera, and they're checking for insulation levels and ways to make a house more energy efficient. And they talk
Yeah.
about light bulbs and low flow water fixtures and air sealing and stuff like that. Is that kind of what you do? What you're talking about?
The home energy score is similar. It's a Department of Energy program, so it's a nationwide, and it's an assessment. So there's no infrared cameras, but insulation levels, window types. We're
Okay.
recording windows by aspect. So south-facing windows are different than north-facing windows. Insulation levels, like I said, heating system, cooling, water heating. So it's more of an assessment. We're cataloging all these things. We put it into the HES program. It spits out a number 1 to 10. So the idea is that it gives you kind of a MPG sticker like you'd find on a car. So if you're comparing two houses, similar size, similar price, one's a 3, which is on the lower end, one's a 9, you're like, well, I'm going to get the 9 because it's more efficient. That's the idea.
So, sorry, Reuben. I saw that you've got a question too, but this is very interesting because I remember learning about this and getting trained to do this years and years ago. And there's so many different programs out there and metrics to kind of measure the energy efficiency of the house. But I know the DOE was trying to create kind of just like one program that everybody could use.
Yeah.
And so I'm just curious, like, does California pretty much do that on all of their houses? Is this like at the time of sale type thing that people go through, or how does that work?
I live in Berkeley, and the city of Berkeley requires what they call a BESO assessment, the Berkeley or the Building Energy Savings Ordinance, which is just requiring a home energy score at time of sale. And for many years, it's been more on the buyer's side, but now they're trying to push it that they really want it at listing, time of listing. Another local city, Piedmont, has required it as well. That's how I got into it because the city's requiring it. Like, let's check that out. Maybe it's something we can get into.
Yeah. Very interesting. Yeah, I think it's something that every home buyer should have access to is like, okay, how energy efficient is this house going to be? Give them an idea of the cost of utilities, the cost of operation. That makes a big difference.
Yeah.
And the city is also using it to track every sale. They know what the score is for each home. So they can kind of get a feel for what the efficiency of each home in their city is. And so I think for a while they thought, we've been doing all these things for many years, all these previous ordinances. And then they're realizing now, looking at these scores, they're like, actually, these homes aren't as good as we thought. And they have goals as a city to say we want to be, polluting less, or, so they realize they need to put some money into these things to help not just give a score, to help put money into actually making improvements.
Okay. I have several questions about this. And this is for both of you guys, but first for you, Paul, what do you think about this program?
I think it's helpful, but it's limited, right? So people will get an idea. Okay, you got 1 to 3. The report will also say, okay, here's your house, but here's the 1, 2, maybe 3 things that are kind of the low-hanging fruit that you can go from a 3 to a 6 by spending X amount of dollars. So it does give people kind of a head start. But if you wouldn't give that to a contractor, say, I want to do this. They still need to, get someone else in there to kind of guide them through the process. And I think like the city's found out that the number itself is not prompting people to do the work, even though they could be saving money by doing some of the work. I think they need, more incentive. So it's not useless, but, and again, I think the city is partially doing it to kind of know what their building stock is like, to get a true assessment of it. And my understanding is that in 2026, they're going to start mandating some improvements at time of sale.
Okay.
So you can choose from a checklist of insulation and air sealing and all these different things, or you can put a heat pump appliance in. There's going to be transfer tax rebate money that's going to be available, so that they're basically giving you free money.
Mandatory upgrades. Really?
Yeah, I guess it is a bit of an oxymoron, but
That's interesting. Wow.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Well, yeah, I feel the same way. It's been a long time since I actually looked at that program and what the reports look like and how, what data they're actually collecting and how accurate that data collection actually is. Every program has its challenges, but like you said, you've got to start somewhere. Like if we want to gauge like where the houses are at, and what they need to get better, you got to start somewhere.
Now, let me ask you, do you ever look at the bills, like the electric bill and the gas bill? Okay.
No.
We've got a similar program here in Minneapolis for our Truth in Housing program. When you list a house for sale, you got to get the city inspection done. And they added on this energy component to it probably 5 years ago or not. I'm pretty sure it's about 5 years ago now. And one thing people talked about, but it never happened, was adding on energy usage, like actual usage history for the home. Now, I know it's not perfect. I mean, if you got somebody who leaves lights on all the time, sure, it's going to skew it. But for the most part, I mean, I think by far the biggest use of electricity is going to be air conditioning, unless you have an electric vehicle and a ton of electric appliances. And the biggest one for gas usage is going to be heating your house.
Wait, what's air conditioning? Never heard of that. I'm in California.
Yeah, they're in the Bay Area. They don't need heating or
you don't
cooling.
have to mess with that. Why don't we incorporate this stuff? And Tessa, I mean, I'm asking you too. But why don't we look at this? It seems like this would be the best possible indicator.
I think it's the human element that they're trying to remove, right? They're trying to assess the building and not how you live in it.
Okay.
So, I mean, it wouldn't hurt to look at that as far as if you were a buyer and say, hey, what are the bills? But again, someone removed a hot tub, someone love to be at 80 degrees every night, and some people want to be at 50 degrees when they're sleeping. So
sure.
Yeah.
I think we're just trying to remove as many variables. And the occupants, so the number of bedrooms affects the score. And partially is because they're anticipating how many people actually live in the building. So you could basically have the same construction house for a 2-bedroom, for a 5-bedroom. It'd be a worse score for 5-bedroom because they're saying basically 2 people are going to live there anyway. And now you have all this more house to heat and cool. So you're using more energy than you need to per person.
Sure. Okay. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Especially some of the bigger, like larger houses I see, even if they're not in bad shape, they have a lower score just because they're so big.
Okay. Got it. And I got a similar question to this and mandated inspections, but I'm going to change the topic. Tess, do you have more you wanted to ask about this before I move on?
I don't think so. One quick question. I don't think they require blower door tests for the home energy score, do they?
No.
Okay. Just curious.
Okay. All right. I know that wildfires have been a big thing in California too. Are there any mandated inspections you got to do there?
There is defensible space. Okay. So there's the state law that says you have to have defensible space. It's been that way for many years. Although the fire departments haven't been great about doing the inspections and making people do the work. Here in the Bay Area, we have a lot of area in the flats, but then there's a whole area in the hills that has a lot of dense vegetation. Well, there's the 1991 fire. I don't know if you remember. The Oakland Hills fire was a big deal because of the topography. In the fall, it gets really dry and windy. So there's not been a lot of political will to make sure these inspections are getting done for the defensible space. And now people are thinking about home hardening. So not just vegetation, like, hey, what can we do to the house to prevent it from catching fire, right? Because you can only, if embers are blowing a mile in front of the fire, it doesn't matter what the vegetation is doing around your house if an ember lands in your gutter and lights your roof on fire.
Sure.
So the home hardening is something that's newer and something that we start touching on in our reports. And some of the, like Berkeley is now, because there's kind of a big park on the east side of Berkeley, if that caught fire, it could basically take out the whole city. They're going to try to create basically an area that has all the homes have home hardening to kind of create a buffer between the parkland and the city, because you need kind of if one person home hardens their house, it doesn't do a lot. But if you have 90+% of people doing it, then you can actually get a real kind of barrier. So it's going to take like kind of a citywide effort to get
kind of like a vaccine, huh?
Yeah. Herd immunity, right? So it's also true for home hardening measures too. Sorry to cut you off.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Home hardening measures, like if you do, there's maybe, let's say 10 things you need to do for home hardening. If you do 2, you don't get a 20% benefit. You just have to do basically all of it to get the benefit, right? Because the chain is only as strong as the weakest link.
Sure.
Right.
So is this home hardening thing, this is new lingo for me. I'm not familiar with it. So is this something that people have been doing for decades now in California, and that's what that's what we call it, or is this a newer kind of development?
It's been in the code. So there's a section in the residential code as well as the building code that talks about wildfire protection. Don't quote me on that, but it's been in the code for at least the last, I think, 3 or 4 code cycles. The problem with anything new in the code, the cities aren't really quick on picking up on it, right? They don't really, there's this new section that we need to start enforcing.
Takes a while. Yeah.
And most of the building code only applies to new homes because most of our homes are existing homes. So the problem is, new homes, they get built to the new standard, they're fine, but then the rest of the homes are still vulnerable.
So are these measures something that a lot of people are doing? Are they retrofitting their houses with this home hardening
they need
practice?
To be.
Okay.
Right, especially in these hillside areas that are high fire severity zones. So you have high fire or very high fire severity zones that are mapped. The state of California has all these maps for these different zones. And if you're in these certain zones, you have to do your home hardening. And then for existing homes, like, when I'm doing an inspection, I'm up in the hills, there's trees everywhere. I'm saying, hey, you're in the hills, this is prone to wildfire. Like, you need to have defensible space, but you also need to do home hardening if you want your structure to survive. So, there's people who will just throw up their hands and say, I'll just rely on insurance, which, mixed results, I would say. But I think I'm more of the state of mind where I'd rather just fix the building, make it resistant to fire, have a place to live after the wildfire, not rely on insurance or the government to help me out.
Well, not only that, but you rely on insurance to replace your, whatever it is, $1 million home, whatever you guys are paying for homes in your area for an average house. You all pay for that. We all pay for that. Well, you pay for it. I don't. I'm in Minnesota. I've got my own rates here, but you guys all share this expense. It drives insurance rates through the roof. I mean, it's bad policy to say I'm going to rely on insurance.
Yeah. So is this defensible space and the home hardening, you said the fire department does those inspections? Or how does that work?
The fire department does the defensible space inspections. There's really no one doing home hardening inspections. So I think as an inspector in California, if you're in a kind of wildfire area, that's something you could maybe add as an inspection, add-on inspection. Obviously, we talk about it a little bit in our reports because you're saying, hey, you're in this area, you should get defensible space inspection from the fire department. You should also think about doing all these home hardening features to your house. There's a fortified home program, I believe, that also addresses wildfire home hardening. And so you can get a discount on your insurance if you follow some of those programs. But, I've reached out to the IBHS or whoever runs the program, and they haven't, who does these inspections, they haven't really gotten back to me. So I think that would be something that would be valuable for homeowners if they can get this certification to lower their insurance rates would be pretty valuable.
Sure.
Can you give us a rundown of what you would look for if you're kind of assessing a house for home hardening? What do those features look like?
Okay, starting at the roof, you want a Class A roof. And in this area, they've required Class A roofs for many years, so I don't think you can get anything else. Putting a wood shake roof on in a fire area is a bad idea. The gutters, you want to have a gutter guard, so covering the top of the gutter keeps out the leaves, which, of course, that also clogs. But the idea is you don't want the debris to be low enough when the ember catches it on fire that it catches the roof deck on fire. So that edge flashing, transitioning from the roof deck to the gutter is critical for flashing, but also for home hardening. So having that flashing as well as the gutter guard. So the venting, whatever venting you have, needs to be a special fire rated vent, a Vulcan vent. Is that something you've heard about? So it's a brand name, kind of like Band-Aid, but Vulcan vents have the smaller screen size so the embers don't get in. And they also have kind of honeycomb matrix that's behind the screen. So if it gets too hot, the matrix will swell shut and won't allow the heat or the embers to get inside. So those are required for your roof. If you have eave or soffit venting, crawl space venting, basically anywhere an ember could get in, those are required. Working our way down the siding, you need a non-combustible siding, something like a traditional 3-cut stucco, fiber cement, something that is not wood. We have a lot of wood siding. Stucco is probably the most common, but we also have a lot of wood. So you're talking to people about, you got this wood siding. How do you fix it? you're looking at residing your whole house, which is not a nice conversation to have, but that's kind of what you have to do. Windows need to be tempered so that the radiant energy of a fire can just shatter regular plate glass, and tempered glass is a lot stronger. So you're looking at, unfortunately, replacing all your windows.
Wow.
Right?
Oh my
Holy
goodness.
cow.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I'll let insurance take care of this. No, just kidding. That's a lot.
Yeah.
New roof, new siding, new windows. Okay. Yeah.
Roofing in most cases is fine because, again, like I said, in the last 20 years, they've required Class A, so most people have those. Every once in a while, I'll see a wood roof where someone's put a layer of drywall underneath because they just had to have a wood roof, which is kind of insane. But yeah, I think most people are happy.
Drywall under a wood roof. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. What could go wrong?
Right.
Oh my goodness.
That's the basics of it, and we don't get into too much details, but we want to let people know, hey, first of all, you're in this zone, but there's also things you can do, right? Because sometimes people say, oh, you're in this hazard zone, and people just give up. But no, here's what you need to do, right? Give them steps, whether it's earthquake retrofitting, home hardening retrofitting, whatever it is. Say, this is the direction you need to go, so they're not just throwing in the towel.
Okay. All right.
Oh, we didn't even get into the earthquake stuff. But is there a set of basic things you look for with that too, that a lot of houses may not have? Older ones?
So older houses would need an earthquake retrofit, and a basic retrofit would be bolting the mud sill to the foundation. For me, a new house would be a 1950s house. So I'm like, oh, this is a new house. This is nice, right? Most of the homes are 20s, 30s, maybe 40s that I see. So the cripple wall area below the first floor framing is basically wide open. There's basically nothing in there. So it just kind of, if you have a 3-foot cripple wall, the whole house will just tip over and be 3 feet shorter. So you want to put bolts, plywood on the cripple walls, and then make a little connector at the top, a shear transfer tie at the top of that. And that's your kind of basic retrofit. And then you get into situations where you have a garage opening that is a soft story, or a hillside home, split level homes. We don't get into crazy details, but being in California, we're definitely talking about that stuff more than you guys would in Minnesota.
Sure.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad we don't have to mess with that, but we got our own set of things we got to mess with, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How often do engineers get involved in your inspections then? Because I would imagine, are you just assuming when it's like a 1920s house, they don't have those things, so you just kind of put that in the report, or are you visually looking for these things and then recommending them if the house needs them?
No, we're crawling under the house. Obviously, we have a lot of crawl spaces, which may be a little different than other areas. 90+% of the houses I see have crawl spaces. It's really important to get in there, even if it's really tight, to get to all kind of corners of the house. You'll see if they have bolting or not. You'll see if they have the plywood shear, and you'll see if they have the shear transfer. Also, if there's rot, you need to get back there and see all those areas. So we're definitely looking for it. When we see a garage that's been covered up, or a basement area that's been recently, flipped or something, we'll have to say, well, we can't see what's behind you. Did they put plywood before the drywall? It's anyone's guess, but that's, people can look under a crawl space and say, this you have found retrofitting or not. But when then you have the finished basement, you can't. So you have to kind of defer it to an engineer. They might have to remove the drywall, see what's going on. Or maybe they have plans that they can show an engineer, but.
Now, how much nasty stuff do you see in the crawl spaces?
I mean, it's not nasty if you see it every day, I guess.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I mean, you see a share of dead animals, and you see dead raccoons and skunks, and yeah.
Okay.
But I have a whole suit. You wear a respirator. You just get ready. If you have elbow pads, knee pads, the whole works, then there's not that part of you that goes, I don't really want to go to the very end of the crawl space. You're just kind of ready for the battle and just kind of grind it out.
Do you leave a business card at the far reaches of the crawl space?
No, but I see some marks. Actually, the guy I learned from, he would scrape his name with his screwdriver in the foundation, or not his initials, I guess. He's like, oh, we say, hey, John, hey, where were you in June 16th of 1991? And he can tell you, right? Because he scrapes in the foundation.
Love it.
Yeah.
Anytime I would get to the far end of a crawl space, I mean, they're kind of few and far between here in Minnesota, but anytime I'd go to the effort of getting in the far end of one, I'd always leave a business card there. Same thing with the far reaches of an attic. I was here.
Yeah, right.
Oh man, Reuben, if you don't have any more questions about the wildfire and earthquake stuff, I have so many questions just about general housing stock
Oh, hit it.
for Paul.
Yeah,
That
let's go.
I'm just curious about. So, Paul, like what percentage of the crawl spaces that you see are encapsulated?
Maybe 5, maybe 10%. Maybe I'll say 5%. And that's not like a full encapsulation. A lot of times it's just what they call clean crawl space is kind of the term around here, where they have a vapor barrier covering the soil and they're not necessarily insulating. It's not conditioned.
Wow.
It's just a way of keeping the damp out of the house.
Yeah.
People come from different parts of the country and they say all these, East Berkeley, Oakland houses have this same smell. And often that smell is just the wet crawl space soil because it's just sitting right under our floor and there's nothing keeping
Yeah.
it out of the house. So people,
Wow.
if they are worried about excess moisture getting in, mold, stuff like that, they're going to put a vapor barrier down. Just the other day, I actually saw a crawl space with no vents. It had mechanical ventilation, had a vapor barrier, and insulation in the crawl space walls, but no heat source. So you're kind of like, well, if it's kind of like they almost made it to conditioned crawl space, but not quite.
Yeah.
The one mechanical vent that they had was unplugged. They actually had a sign on the wall saying, "Attention inspectors, like this is a so and so crawl space," because most people are going to be like, "What the heck's going on here?" But unfortunately, they unplugged it. They didn't, we don't like to see insulation on the critical walls because we can't see what the damage would be, right? We can't, if it gets wet, how is it going to dry out without conditioning? So.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Well, the reason I wanted to ask you about crawl spaces is because, there's a general consensus in like the building science world that encapsulating crawl space is the best thing you can do for that space. Because like you mentioned, a lot of times, it's a source of moisture from the soil, radon, other soil gases. And also, it can cost you a lot with, energy usage and comfort if it's not properly air sealed and insulated. But I mean that you feel the penalties more obviously in a very cold climate like Minnesota if you have a crawl space that's not properly air sealed insulated. So I wasn't sure if being in the Bay Area where the climate is much more mild, if people really care about that or if they're doing anything about that. And it sounds like most of the houses just kind of have an open crawl space where it's outside conditions are happening under the house, and that's just how it is.
Yeah, I mean, the climate in this area in particular is very mild. I was joking about the air conditioning. We don't have a lot of air conditioning because it doesn't get that hot. It doesn't get that cold.
Yeah.
It's really damp, and we were close to the ocean, so the humidity levels are maybe higher. But people, if they have insulation in the floor, I'm happy. I'm like, I don't hardly ever see that. I mean,
Yeah.
to
Wow. Wow.
put it in perspective, right?
Yeah. And do you see a lot of mold and rot then happening in those crawl spaces because of the unsealed dirt floor?
Usually the rot is from, coming through the windows or siding, or it's coming from leaks in the bathroom. We're always checking very closely under the front porch. We have a lot of concrete over wood porches in this area. And of course, the concrete cracks, it leaks, and you have the wood damage underneath. You get leaks in the bathroom. So you don't just find random rot or mold in places that aren't under the bathroom, under the porch, not next to the exterior wall. So it doesn't seem to be much of an issue. I mean, obviously some homes with bad, ventilation or high moisture levels are getting more mold in like the closets where they don't get much airflow. We still have a decent
Yeah.
number of floor furnaces and wall furnaces that don't, distribute the air very evenly. So areas behind the couch or in the closet tend to have mold. But it's not that much of an issue given our climate.
You can get away with a lot more. It's a lot more forgiving when it's in that comfortable
Absolutely.
temperature range most of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not where problems happen.
I guess not. Yeah. Well, that makes more sense with, with the home energy scores that a lot of houses are not as efficient as they thought. I mean, you think about it, it's just like there's no insulation under the entire floor and very little air sealing. And I'm sure the attic spaces are pretty minimally insulated and there's a lot of air leakage happening there too, just because, again, it's a more comfortable climate. So why do all of those things?
Yeah, one of the reasons they went to the home energy score is because the previous ordinance said you have to insulate the attic, you got to put in low flow fixtures at the faucets, you have to do all these kind of prescriptive things. So for 10, 20 years, they were just throwing insulation in the attic, covering up knob and tube, but also not air sealing. So because it wasn't really catching up with the building science. So the idea of the home energy score is, as things evolve, the home energy score can also evolve and say, like, hey, here's what you need to do. So they're trying to get away from the prescriptive measures that were maybe made sense in the 70s, but maybe not so much in the 2000s when they started switching things over.
And what about the heating and cooling systems? You mentioned already, you kind of touched on it. You don't see a lot, but your houses, it sounds like you do need some sort of heating source. So what's predominantly do you see in most existing older homes?
Gas furnaces, 95% of the time it's going to be gas furnace. A lot of times in the crawl space.
Okay.
Another reason
Yeah.
they got in the crawl space, and it's always fun to try to put the cover back on as you're like horizontal and like
gosh,
a
yeah.
18-inch crawl space.
We have a tough enough time getting those covers back on when you're sitting right in front of it.
Yeah. So almost all gas furnaces. There's a new, regulation, I guess I would call it. So there's a air quality management district, and they've been regulating NOx emissions since the 80s. And every 5-10 years, they've kind of ratcheted down the amount of NOx that gas appliances can emit. And starting in 2027, your water heater can no longer emit NOx. So you can have a gas water heater, it just can't emit NOx, which is, I don't know how you do that, but you're basically, in essence, mandating a switch to an electric resistance.
I was going to say.
Water heater.
Yeah, forced electrification. It sounds like. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been in the news, but Berkeley tried to ban gas, and then they got fought by the gas industry, and then it got overturned. So that because there was no basis basically for that lawsuit, I guess, but for pollution, regulations that have been there's a track record for those. They've been doing it since the 80s. Pollution's been regulated, so there's not, the industry doesn't have a way to kind of stop it, I guess. So it's just moving forward. And I think a lot of times, people resist change, right? That's something that we do. And then, people are like, I need my incandescent light bulb. And then years later, like, well, why didn't I just switch to LED? They're better, right? Like, why was I resisting? And I think it's similar with heat pumps where, like, I need my gas furnace. And then after you get a heat pump, like, well, actually it's a lot more efficient, and I get cooling. And the maybe 1 week a year where you'd like to have cooling in an area, it's kind of nice to have it.
Sure.
So, people get resistant, and then they realize, well, they're changing to this new thing because it's actually better.
So how about heat pump water heaters? Do you see many of those?
I'm starting to.
Okay.
Yeah. So what we're saying is, hey, this is coming, right? In our reports, we'll tell people that these regulations are coming. Pre-wire for your next water heater, because almost all the water heaters I see are gas. The next one's probably going to be electric. So if you run your 240 volt circuit, you'll be ready to go. When your water heater dies on a Friday afternoon, which is when they always die, then you'll be ready.
Man, the electricians in your area must just be salivating. I mean, you've got everybody needs an EV charger now. You're going to have electric water heaters. You're going to be switching furnaces over to heat pumps. And with all of that comes your 100 amp service isn't going to cut it anymore. Now you need a 200 amp service. I mean, there's a lot of work for electricians out there.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. You think that it would be as kind of a slam dunk, but a lot of the trade work has been segregated, right? So the plumbers are putting in the water heaters, and they don't want anything to do with electrical.
No.
And you're like, just learn to put in a 30 amp circuit, and you're going to make a lot of money. But they seem to be very resistant to that.
Wow. So you need a plumber and electrician. Yeah.
We got the
I was going back to the crawl spaces. I was just thinking it's very interesting. The way that you described most of these crawl spaces are just kind of, they're vented, they're open to the outdoors, and you've got a furnace down there, and I'm assuming all the ductwork that's distributing that air to all the different rooms. And most ductwork is not perfectly air sealed or airtight. There's a lot of joints and connections, and so I'm just imagining there's just a lot of interchange between outside air and inside air with your houses, probably. Like there's a lot of outside air being pulled in or drawn in, depending on where the duct leakage is happening. But just thinking about wildfires and smoke and all that, it must be a challenge to really try and control the air quality in those houses.
Yeah. And it's funny, a lot of times we had the fires that were pretty bad a few years back, people were stuffing things in their chimneys because they didn't have a damper. They didn't have any way to seal it, and all this smoke and ash and soot was like coming down the chimney, not up the chimney.
Sure.
So it's pretty wild,
Wow.
right? I think that, people should have a forced air system that could have a filter on it. So when we basically tell you to close all the doors and windows and the wildfire comes, the smoke comes in, you can have a way to filter it, to put it in a MERV 13 or better filter.
Yeah.
So that's another motivation to keep, because there's heat pumps that have the heads on the inside that don't really filter the air.
Right.
So people, they're making a choice between a ducted system or a non-ducted system. I think a lot of people are opting for the ducted so they have ability to control the air, like the quality of the air, and filter it.
Yeah. Well, even if you've got a filter, if you're lucky enough to have a furnace with ductwork, so you can have a filter and have that way of cleaning the air. If you have an open crawl space and unsealed ductwork, you're still going to be pulling in potentially, pollutants. And so unless you seal off that crawl space and encapsulate it, and bring that ductwork inside the building envelope, or you duct seal all the ductwork with like AeroSeal or something like that, that would be, I think, an ongoing issue too.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it doesn't seem to be an issue for the crawl space as far as the smoke getting in and like getting into the house. It's usually our old leaky windows that are like, the low hanging fruit. We have old double hung windows that they rattle when you raise them up, and they rattle when they go down. God forbid we have a double pane window. And so it's the bigger things that are causing the problems. Yeah.
I got a question for you. Talking about the wildfires and the smoke, and earlier this year on the podcast, I was talking about how we were getting some air quality alerts in Minnesota. We were getting a lot of them. Where it was just hazy outside, just gray and dark from all these wildfires that we got coming from Canada and whatever. I'll blame them. I don't know, maybe it was Minnesota, but I never, the thought never even occurred to me to put in a really high efficiency filter like a MERV 13 or something on my furnace and just keep it running. Is that actually effective? It never even crossed my mind.
Yeah, as long as it's 13 is kind of threshold for the 2.5 particulate that you need for wildfire smoke.
Interesting. Okay.
And then for our house, we put in a MERV 16.
Okay.
Just because I'm a house geek and wanted to one up everyone else.
Yeah.
But also, it does trap viruses and other things. So if you in the age of COVID, you're like, well, that might be kind of nice if we had people over. Someone's like hacking up a lung to have that ability. So if you have a 1-inch filter, though, putting in a MERV 13 is probably going to reduce the flow too much, right? So you have to make sure the filter housing is thick enough that it can handle the airflow.
Sure.
But if you're just running to the fan only, not heating or cooling, I guess the flow doesn't matter.
Yeah. Then you're just using it as a filter, and that's it.
Just to circulate the air, without heating. I was just going to say, Reuben, that's a good question, and I think about just all the testing that you can do on a furnace to make sure that it's working efficiently and the fan is working at optimal speed and the supplies and returns are balanced so that you don't have, the pressures aren't off. And who does these tests? Not very many HVAC contractors out there do that, but it can really help prolong the life of the furnace and improve comfort in the house. But there are so many furnaces out there that don't work properly, or like don't have enough return air, or there's not enough supply air, or the fan hasn't been adjusted properly, or the filter is restricting the airflow too much. So you have inadequate temporize and stuff like that. But in general, like a high MERV filter seems like a good thing, but I could see how it could also mess things up if it really does restrict your airflow a lot and you're using your furnace for heating on a regular basis.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. One thing we're recommending is getting a manual J when people are replacing their furnaces or whatever heating system they have, because the contractors are just doing the rule of thumb and I threw one of these and it worked last time, didn't get a call back. But also getting the manual D for duct design and manual S for selection. So the ducts are a total mess. They're in the crawl space, they're sagging, the rats are living in them. So actually getting the duct sizing correct, and as far as like you're starting off with a bigger trunk and narrowing down as you go farther out, it makes a huge difference in like how it performs, but also the comfort of it. Like you're not getting one room that's like blowing 100 miles an hour, and the other rooms that are not getting enough, right? So we get a lot of complaints as just talking to people like, I hate forced air. I would never have forced air. And I go, well, why? Well, it's just loud. It blows in my face. With one room, all these things are basically a symptom not of forced air system. It's a symptom of bad duct installation or design.
Yeah, sure.
A right? Performance issue, you would say. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
Very
doing my own
interesting.
house, I realized how much actually is involved in that, and I'm realizing why the contractors aren't doing it.
Yes. Well, and the reason I'm thinking about that is because I'm kind of working with the Energy Conservatory a little bit these days, and that's what this organization, they're based out of the Twin Cities, does, is they create diagnostic testing equipment for home performance. And so they are in this realm of making blower doors and duct blasters and creating apps and pressure gauges to help contractors out there measure these things and improve the efficiency and comfort for HVAC systems. So there's a long way to go in the industry, though. Still, I think we can all agree. So, I know we probably need to wrap up this podcast soon, Reuben, but one more just general question for Paul. Is there anything that we have not any questions we have not asked you that we should have, or any topics that you want to talk about as a home inspector or with your houses, their problems that you see that you think would be good to include on this podcast that we haven't touched on yet?
Well, one thing that's I guess there's two things, but one thing that was particular to this area is we have a lot of stucco. In the 20s, it was very popular to do stucco houses with a parapet. So you have, what I call a bathtub roof. You get the drain gets clogged and you have a bathtub on your roof.
Yeah.
So for many years, there's a structural pest control operator who's a separate license who would come out and do a pest inspection, and they would often do test holes because you could look at the stucco, it looks totally fine. There's no signs of damage on the inside. They would start probing, drill holes, start probing in the stucco, and it's totally shot. I mean, like basically your wall is just stucco and there's not much wood left.
Structural stucco. Yes.
Yeah. And it was old 3-coat stucco. It's pretty darn tough. It's got, a lot of times a wire mesh in there. So it's actually doing okay. But it's important to see like a stucco house and not just presume that what you're seeing on the outside is what's on the inside. So recently they made a change where they felt like the pest inspectors were kind of like fishing for work by recommending test holes, even though like they can't, it was a valuable service because they're actually seeing what's going on behind the wall. So as home inspectors, we've been trying to help the industry out, saying like, we have a stucco parapet house, like it's important to get test hole openings, right? So we're kind of letting the clients know this is something that's important to do. They might do test holes and find zero. They might do test holes and find $50,000 in damage. I mean, it could go either way. So it's important to know.
Yeah.
And then we're trying to help inform the public so that the test guys aren't being like labeled as the bad guys, right?
Sure. That's good.
And as California inspectors, there's actually a pool inspection law that passed a few years back, and that's been kind of a big deal because before we don't actually inspect pools, we don't have many pools, so we could just say, oh, we're not inspecting that. But this law came in basically as like an anti-drowning prevention thing where they have to categorize, do you have these 7 pool drowning prevention measures, and if they're installed properly. But the original law was written in a way that was impossible to follow. Like you have to determine if it meets all the parts of an ASTM standard that we don't have access to. And, it was maybe well-intentioned, but poorly executed.
Yeah.
A lot of things out. But, if you're in California, you can't just ignore a pool. And now because of the state law, you have to talk about these different drowning prevention measures. If there's less than 2, you have to put this certain verbiage in the reports. So I'm sure if you're in California and you're listening, you've probably already done that. But if you're not, you're going to be in trouble soon. So make sure you're talking about the things the way the law is written. You have to kind of craft your language a certain way. We're never, of course, saying it meets an ASTM standard because that's not our job, and we're not like balance testing like mesh to see how much elasticity it has and things like that, right? So
sure.
And with earthquakes, we have a lot of problems with chimneys. So chimneys like to fall over. And we have that same air management quality district that is going to be reducing the amount of NOx in the air. Is also says you can't burn wood in the lot in the winter because of the particulate matter getting in the air and causing health effects. So I think in this area, most of the inspectors basically are saying we don't like chimneys and they should be removed. In this area, they're all brick and mortar and they're heavy and they're poorly attached to the house. Even if you did try to attach to the house, it'd probably just damage the house more if you did that.
Or just a giant liability.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and people don't use them that much, right? I mean, it's a nice idea. I mean, you could maybe take down the chimney and keep the fireplace just for aesthetics. But having this big, heavy, masonry structure looming over your head is probably not a good idea.
Yeah.
So we do talk about that probably.
Yeah.
More than other parts of the world.
With gas going away too and electrification happening, why would you even have a firebox where you could put a gas insert in, I guess?
I mean, I think the laws are kind of for water heating and heating, they're basically making a transition. It's notable that they're not trying to ban gas ranges because that's where people are most kind of passionate about having gas.
Sure.
Right. And if you talk about percentage of pollution, there's not as much coming from ranges as opposed to the other ones.
Pretty much. They're
sidestepping the hot button political issues so that people don't react and they can still have their gas range.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just thinking, Paul, you've got your work cut out for you out there in California. I mean, I can see if home inspecting is a whole different ballpark, I feel like, compared to Minnesota. We have it easy here. We don't have to do the mandatory pool things. We don't have earthquakes we need to be thinking about.
The energy
we don't have
things.
Wildfires.
Yeah. We would not be able to easily just swap places. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I mean, it does keep it interesting. I'll give it that, right? I mean, if I was inspecting the same house every day, you got to admit it'd probably be a little boring after a while. But when you see 100-year-old houses that could have all these little Easter eggs kind of hidden here and there, you might see random things like transite roofing once every 10 years or whatever it is. It helps
asbestos,
keep you busy and it keeps it interesting. I think I'd rather have that than just doing a tract home.
Yeah.
Clearly, you're up for the challenge if you're a home inspector in California.
Hopefully.
Well, Paul, if people want to reach out to you, they got other questions about this, throw out your business name, website where people can find you.
The business name is JMC Inspection. So that was named after the founder, and I took it over for him many years ago.
Okay.
And it's jmcinspections.com. You just go to our website. If you have questions for me, feel free to just email me directly. It's paul@jmcinspections.com. The business phone number is 510-525-7173. Of course, you can probably just find that on Google, but I don't mind if you want to reach out and have questions about different things about inspecting in California. If you want to debate some random topic, I mean, whatever it is, I'm all in. Even like with clients, I tell them, hey, if you have a question in 5 years, just email me. And no one does it. I'm like, I'm trying to get these people to email me if you have problems with contractors or whatever. I'm like, I know, I'm serious. And the people that do, they're like, wow, you answered all my questions. I'm like, well, I can answer their questions, but I also get to learn what they're going through, and that helps me be a better inspector.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. Great. Thank you so much, Paul, for coming on the show today. It's been great having you on, and thanks for answering all of our questions.
Yeah, appreciate it, sir.
Me.
And for the listeners, if you got any questions for us, you're welcome to reach out. You can contact us by emailing us. It's podcast@structuretech.com, and we will catch you next time. Take care.